I'm with Father Boquet, and you're the new president of Human Life International. And one of the challenges in the world is getting out the life message. Human Life International is arguably, possibly, one of the largest, if not the largest, pro-life organization out there that does that. Can you tell us some of what's going on right now?
Sure. I mean, as we heard, presentations this morning, supporting the culture of life is really a full-time responsibility, and we're seeing around the world today where the attack on life is happening. I was in Sao Paulo, Brazil, recently, and the culture of death is really grabbing hold. And how is it grabbing hold? It's grabbing hold by, forming the minds of people and convincing people that, that their agenda is a legitimate agenda. And so our responsibility is to go in and show that this is not a good agenda. And why is it not a good agenda? Because it doesn't support life. But, as Governor Huckabee said this morning, which I thought was a beautiful way of looking at it, supporting a culture of the sacredness of life or the sanctity of life. And I mean, really, that's what the Human Life International does, in its advocacy, its education, is to help people to see that it is in their best interest, it's in the human interest to protect life, to look at life and to see what can we do to encourage it, to, as John Paul II said, humanity is the greatest resource. So what I'm seeing across the world is a resurgence. I mean, being invited in various parts of the world to come and speak, give conferences, opportunity to talk to young people, middle-aged people, older people. People are really interested in talking about this language, but understanding it. And I think that's the most important thing that I'm seeing around the world. And listening to our affiliates and our coordinators and our directors, they're hearing the same thing because they're getting invited. Father West, who's VP for Mission, just came back from Poland, meeting with HLI leaders and other pro-life leaders. Why are they gathering? Because they see that this is a moment where people are hungry for truth. And so we're watching this unfold. And so thank goodness, that HLI and, many other pro-life groups are recognizing this is a pivotal moment for us to stand and to witness, to speak, and to use opportunities just like this, the media, to talk to people, to get that message out there. And, recognizing the dignity of every human being, no matter how that person was conceived, expressing that. But at the same time, I'm also noticing, that the agenda on the left, if you want to call it that, is also pumping up their media too, and trying to take another turn, and convince people that, we're threatening, choice, we're threatening people's rights. No, we're speaking for the rights of every person.
Yeah. And most recently, of course, we have this pushing of the administration to try to push the contraception issue, abortifacients, forcing religious institutions to be involved in that in any way, whether it's financing or distribution thereof or, insurance thereof. I mean, whatever the case may be. And, a lot of people say that that they made a big mistake in stepping on that. But I often look at this in comparison to sort of a battle where if your enemy will push your lines and see where you're weak and where you're strong.
Right.
And I think they pushed this one to see, how strong are religious institutions right now.
Sure.
And what do you think is the response to that?
Well, I would agree. I mean, I do think that this is a moment, where the opportunity is, what are we going to do? And so, getting pushed back, actually, as bad as this is, and it's a bad situation when we have our religious liberty being challenged and threatened, and it's not just, as someone pointed out in the conference we just attended, it's not a Catholic issue alone. It's a human issue. It's our issue. It's affecting every one of us. So at the same time, by pointing in particularly out at the Catholic Church, it really is, a threat, to what we hold and what we believe, and to impose that upon us and say that we have to pay for something that we know that goes against our doctrine, against our teaching, again, is not only disrespectful, it's an attack against our religious freedom. And so it's good that people are being aware of it. And what's nice is because it's not just a Catholic issue. You're hearing Protestant, Jew, even people who don't claim any religious status, recognizing what's at stake here. And if we don't voice and push back, then what will be the next thing? Will they, as I jokingly tell people, will they choose out bald men, and say, hey, you're next, we're going to put you out of life. So I think these are real issues. So I think that as bad as it is that to see the administration take this position, it's now actually calling us who stand for life and who really want to see the dignity of every person upheld and religious freedom protected. This is our chance. This is our moment. And I really think that they may have pushed, awakened a sleeping giant.
I kind of agree with that. And finally, there's a connection here with what we're trying to do. One of our projects, Cherish Life Ministries, we're a call to the church, specifically calling to church people of leadership and people out there in the pulpits, and we're asking everyone to rise up and get involved. And how important do you think it is for people to speak up and get involved in the life issues?
It's a very, very important issue. I'm rereading the encyclical by Benedict XVI, God is Love, Deus Caritas Est, and in that document he makes no if or but. We must be involved, that the community must be engaged, and more importantly, talking from a Christian perspective, as Christians, we must engage. And if we don't engage, then we're not doing what we're called to be as disciples. So it's not just someone else's issue, it's our issue, because it's a human issue. And because it's a human issue, it's a godly issue. And I think it's important to get people off the pew, out in the street. I gave a talk last week up in Shreveport about an abortion mill where I went to participate. And at the banquet that night, talking to over 200 people, I said, imagine if all 200 of us had gone out that day. We may not have stopped. There were 5 women who entered in while I was there. I had no power to change what they entered in with. But, my presence and the presence of other people there made them stop and think. And, but if 200 people would have been there, guess what? Maybe they might have gotten back in the car and drove away, thinking more about what they did. But imagine if 1,000 people, and you know the math. We have the power to change this. The question is, are we willing to move away from apathy and indifference and really engage in a charitable, loving way? And recognize that the person in the womb is a brother and a sister.
Absolutely.
So we have it's our responsibility.